Shalom, I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you part 2 of an interview conducted by Orthodox Jew Nehemia Gordon with the representative of the renewed Sanhedrin, which historically was an Orthodox Jewish rabbinical court, and now part 2 of the interview.
So he established this calculated calendar. And just to be clear, the Sanhedrin today, that was established in 2004, they haven't come and said, we're doing away with the Hillel calendar?
No, not exactly, no. We don't want to make...
So let's be clear about that, because that's the impression people are getting.
No. We take upon us all the usual tradition and the Jewish law. The main point is that Hashem gave the people, the Jewish people, the law, the authority, the symbol to appointed time. So the main thing is the authority. The authority, what is a law at all? What is the difference between the Torah, the Jewish law, and any other law? What is, if a Kara'i or a Christian will say, oh, I see the moon, it's not enough.
So there needs to be the authority of the Sanhedrin.
Yes.
Not just the moon is seen, it needs to be proclaimed that it was seen by the Sanhedrin.
This is the mitzvah.
Okay.
And
this is the actual commandment.
Yes.
Isn't to sight the moon, you're saying it's for the Sanhedrin to proclaim that the moon was sighted.
When the great codificators of the Jewish law, let's say from the time of Rasag, Rabbi Sadia Gaon, from the 10th century, and to the Rambam and many others, there is a debate if in the future the Jews will restart to make the months according seeing the moon, or it will go on automatically.
In other words, will the Hillel II new calendar continue for all time?
Yes.
Or will only be until
Exactly.
the Mashiach comes or the Sanhedrin is established?
Exactly.
Okay. And by the way, this debate was raging in an Israeli newspaper a week or two ago, and you were part of that debate. Can I read something you wrote in that debate?
Yes.
So this is my English translation. So you wrote about the calculated calendar, quote, that it insults anyone with intelligence who observes every month anew the alienation from the first public foundational commandment, which is, and then you quote from Exodus 12:2, this month shall be for you the beginning of months.
Exactly.
So explain what you mean. That's an amazing concept.
You are coming to the synagogue. Yeah. You hear the Gabbai or the Chazan says the months will be, let's say, on Wednesday.
Wait, I got to explain that because people don't know. So in an Orthodox synagogue, every month, you said the cantor or the, I guess deacon is the best way.
The one is nominated.
Yeah. So someone will, one of the lay leaders will announce and say, this is when the month begins to the second, and you're saying that insults people's intelligence because they go outside and they see it's not there.
Exactly.
Wow, and that's an alienation from a foundational commandment.
Yes.
So a public foundational commandment. What is this concept of a public foundational commandment? You said mitzvat yesod tziburi. This is an interesting concept.
It's a very, very interesting concept because it's the foundation of the Jewish people. When we read about Exodus, before all Yetziat Mitzrayim, before all the Exodus, it starts, החודש הזה לכם ראש חודשים. This month will be, it's the renewing of the time for all the world, not only for the Jewish people. And I want to tell you a story that this is the 5 years that we make the exercise of the Pesach sacrifice. And this year it will be in Yirtzeh Hashem on the Olive Mount. And it's exactly in the beginning of the second temple, in the time of Ezra and Nehemia, all the Gentiles that sit on those mountains, they wanted to stop the building of the temple. And they make a lot of troubles to all the Jews. And now we are in the same situation.
So when you're doing it now for the 5th year in a row, you call it an exercise. In other words, you're very explicitly saying this is not the Passover sacrifice, this is practice.
Yes,
is that right?
Always we are doing it on the 10th of Nisan.
On the 10th of Nisan.
Always, because it's written, בעשור לחודש, in the 10th of the month, you should take the lamb and slaughter it in the eyes of the nations, and don't be afraid. And all the Jews make it. They tied the lamb to the leg of the bed 4 days, and the Egyptians were collapsed. They say, what? They're kicking Allah. They're kicking our lamb. What will be?
Because the lamb was their God.
Yes.
Right, they worship sheep.
Yes.
Okay. This was back in the story of Joseph. They said the Hebrews are abominations because they eat sheep.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And the 14th of Nisan comes Leila Seder. All the Jews went out by God's will with Yad Ramah, with a strong...
With a high hand, not afraid, not embarrassed.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're doing this as a symbol to say what exactly?
Exactly. We are trying to educate the Jewish people not to be cowards and to be proud with their laws and to activate them. And then Jews will become for themselves elevated and be in dignity. And maybe some nations also will say, oh, they are real Jews. They are not afraid. They are serious.
Yeah. And here's something you said in an interview. You said, for 2,000 years, we practiced Judaism a certain way. Even though we are in Israel, the Torah and mitzvot commandments are still in galut. And they translated it diaspora, but galut's not diaspora, it's exile. And then you made the statement in the article you wrote in Hebrew. You talked about the new moon, the proclamation of the new moon as a commandment, the trampling of which parallels the trampling of other public foundational commandments, for which there is no difficulty to keep other than a love of galut, of exile, and an affinity for empty excuses. So explain to people who aren't Jewish, or even to Jews who are in the diaspora, what is this, the love of galut? What does this mean? Our commandments are in galut even though we're in Israel.
The Jews are afraid from their inner identity. They deny that they are kings. Or
what do you mean they deny they're kings?
Every Jew is a king, or a son of a king. In the Talmud כתוב, כל ישראל בני מלכים הם.
So it says in the Talmud all Israelites are sons of kings. Okay.
What I want to say is that Torah says שוטרים that you must make court, and if you will not make court, you will be expelled from your land. It's written.
You're saying making a Sanhedrin is a Torah commandment to have a Sanhedrin.
You cannot live in Eretz Israel without law, and the law is the Torah, and the Torah is the Sanhedrin. And if there is no Sanhedrin, it's like you have not a court.
Professor Weiss, I received an email just this morning from someone who wrote to me as follows. They said, Shalom Nehemia, we heard that the Sanhedrin observed Passover at Jerusalem already in March of 2016. Is that true?
No, this nonsense.
So where are they getting this idea from, Professor Weiss?
This is their own wishes. They read about the story with the moon, and they say, oh, the Sanhedrin throw out the old calendar, and now they are making a new calendar.
So you didn't throw out the Hillel 2 calendar?
Chas v'sholem.
God forbid, you're saying chas v'sholem?
Chas v'sholem. We want that the Rabbanut, the Hebraic people, that anyone
the Orthodox, the ultra-Orthodox.
What is the power of the Torah, and why the Torah gives this power to court? Not to Hillel Weiss, not to our court, to any court which is Sanhedrin in all the generations that will be in Eretz Israel. And if you leave this mitzvah, you leave the Torah, you leave the authority, you are going back to the exile.
Wow. So what you did was, again, as an exercise, a practice to show this is what should be done, but you by no means are saying we've abolished the traditional Hillel 2 calendar from 359. That still is an authority until when?
Till many people and other authorities in Eretz Israel will say, and the Rabbanut too, will say,
which is the chief rabbinate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will say, we must change our conception of the Torah, our courts, our will, how we apply to Hashem, how we apply to ourselves and to all other the nations. We not only are making exercises. The exercises is they are aimed, it's a purpose to make it real, not to be stopped by the exercise.
But right now it's not real.
Now it's a sign on the way.
Okay.
We are going to Temple Mount. We are going to build a temple. We are going to raise the kingdom of David. And we are very close to this time. When Hashem started to speak to Moses, prepare to go out from Egypt, he started with the start of the moon, of Nisan, of, let's say, April. Kazer Eve Kadesh.
Okay, let's explain it. So the first commandment, according to Jewish sources, the first commandment given to Israel as a nation, and it's interesting because there was an article about this in Breaking Israel News, and they said it was the first commandment given to the Jews after the Exodus, which isn't true. It was before the Exodus, but it's the first one given to Israel as a nation. In other words, before that we had maybe
14 days before the Exodus. It was a preparation.
So before that, maybe we had certain commandments like the sciatic nerve, Gid Anasheh, and maybe we had the commandment of
Milah.
Of circumcision, but those weren't for Israel as a nation.
It's not a national commandment; it's a personal commandment.
So the first commandment given to Israel as a nation was
החודש
This month
הזה
is for you,
לכם,
is for you,
לכם,
which is
in
the
plural.
Okay, the plural. So in English, that's all y'all in the southern part of the U.S. It's the plural of you. That was the first commandment given to the people of Israel as a nation. And the way that has to be carried out, according to your understanding, is the Sanhedrin has to meet, and they have to hear from 2 or more witnesses, and they have to proclaim Mekudash, 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 sanctified, sanctified,
Exactly.
sanctified. I want to read something Rashi says, because I looked this up. Rashi is the Jewish commentator, canonical Jewish commentator, and he talks about, in his commentary on Genesis 1:1, he talks about this very issue, and he actually quotes from a midrash, and he says as follows. He says, Rabbi Yitzchak said, and this is from the midrash, the Torah should have begun with Exodus 12 too. This month shall be for you the beginning of months. In other words, that's the first commandment. Why are we starting in Genesis 1:1? The Torah should have started with the first commandment. It's a book of commandments, Torah's instruction. And then he says, because of the power of his deeds, God gave his people the land of the nations. For if the nations of the world would say to Israel, you are robbers, and I love in Hebrew it says listim, you're highway robbers. You conquered the lands of the 7 nations. Israel can respond to them. Then the entire earth belongs to the Holy One, blessed be He. He created it and gave it to whom He saw fit. It was His will to give it to the Canaanites. I added the word Canaanites. And it was His will to take it away from them and give it to us. I read that and I was almost in tears because the nations of the world actually say these. Rashi wrote this 800 years ago, and today the nations of the world say, you're robbers. You stole that land from other people. And this, can you believe this? That nothing, and this is in the Midrash. Amazing.
Citation from Amar Rabbi Yitzchak is from Midrash Rabbah.
Yeah.
Midrash Rabbah. Yes, but it's from the 3rd century. And it's like people before. So 1700,
1800 years ago, people were already saying, and this to me is where which put me to tears. So there's a connection in ancient Jewish sources between 3 things: between God's creation of the universe, between Israel's claim to the land of Israel, and the sanctification of the new moon. Those 3 are intimately intertwined in the Jewish thought and in Scripture. That's amazing. So now you made this statement in your article in this Israeli newspaper where there was this discussion where some people were saying that, no, we're never going to go back to citing the new moon because it's too convenient, the pre-calculated calendar, and you came out against this, and some other people came out against, the Israeli New Moon Society also came out against it, and you referred to the Sanhedrin here as, and I'm looking for the phrase, something like the Sanhedrin HaMitchadesh VaMukhash, the renewed and rejected Sanhedrin. What do you mean by the renewed and rejected Sanhedrin, or denied Sanhedrin?
look, we are on a process to renew. We are starting this way. We take ourselves very seriously. And some people that were persecuted by the government came to us, and sometimes we succeeded to help them or to stand for them. There are many, many very strong stories about it. Not only once and not only 10 times.
In other words, Jews who have decided to live in certain parts of the land of Israel, the government of Israel has persecuted them for that.
Exactly.
Because they didn't read the Rashi in Genesis 1:1 that says that, the nations will say to you, you're robbers. And now the government's saying you're robbers. The government of Israel.
Therefore, the Sanhedrin start a trial against all the nations.
What? Wait a minute. The Sanhedrin
Start a trial.
Has a trial against the
nations, the 70 nations, because they denied that Eretz Israel, Jerusalem, the temple, belonged to the Jews, also according the international law, the secular international, not only the one law.
So you're putting the United Nations international law, the 70 nations laws on trial. Wow. That's amazing.
It's very simple.
Wow.
Because you read the Rashi.
Wow. That's amazing. This is historic what's happening. The Sanhedrin, you're saying, is in a process of being renewed. I think it is a good thing that the Jewish people have some body which is attempting to do the things that you've talked about, which is, reestablish Torah law over the people of Israel. And may it be soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Shalom.
Well, that's going to conclude our report where we shared with you part 2 of an interview by Orthodox Jew Nehemia Gordon with the representative of the renewed Sanhedrin in Israel. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.